Hello there. I'm Dr. Dan. Welcome to my relaxing infectious disease clinic. I see you were sent here today by Dr. Pendergrass. Is that right? I see. What brings you in today? Get my clipboard here. Okay. How long have you been having those symptoms? Okay. Okay. All right, and you've been having fevers as well? Okay. Any history of immune compromise? Oh, okay. And do you have any other medical illnesses? Okay. High blood pressure, diabetes type 2? Okay. Are you on insulin? All right. And let's see. Have you had any surgeries in the past? Okay. That was in 2015, right? Okay. Gotcha. Have you had your flu shot yet this year? No? You don't get the flu shot? Is it okay if we talk a little bit more about that? Because it's incredibly important that you do get your flu shot. Okay. What are some of the reasons that you don't get your flu shot? Okay. So you don't get the flu. Okay. Anything else? You don't think it works? Okay. Anything else? You got the flu from the flu shot? All right, we'll talk about that. Anything else? You also have a severe egg allergy. Okay, got it. Anything else? You think you're healthy and if you get the flu, that's fine? You'll just get over it like any other cold? Got it. Okay. Anything else? You're really scared of needles. Yeah, I mean, who isn't? But okay. All right. I think we can work with this. All right. So let's start at the beginning. The first thing you said was, if I'm remembering right, you don't get the flu shot because you don't get the flu, right? Yeah. That is probably one of the most common reasons that many of my patients tell me is they don't get the flu shot because, well, I haven't had the flu. Those folks are lucky, or they may have had a asymptomatic or relatively low symptom illness when they did get influenza. But I think it's important to know that they are not immune from getting influenza. So for most of those people that say, well, I haven't gotten the flu, you're lucky. And this year in particular, with coronavirus circulating, it's more important than ever to get the influenza vaccine. And the reason for this is multiple. First, the symptoms of coronavirus infection can often mimic the symptoms of influenza virus infection. Second, you can be potentially infected with both viruses at the same time, which could potentially worsen your clinical outcome. And third, everyone over the age of 6 months should be getting a flu shot every year regardless, because even if you are a healthy individual yourself, by getting that flu shot and preventing yourself from acquiring influenza, you're also protecting your loved ones, your community, people who may not be as healthy as you are, even though you do mention that you do have some medical comorbidities that may make you actually at a higher risk to get really sick from influenza, like type 2 diabetes that's poorly controlled, Also, advanced age, being over 60, can put you at higher risk of, for example, requiring hospitalization with influenza. That is a big misconception that a lot of my patients have, is that influenza is just an illness that you feel crummy for a couple days, but you'll get over it. It's not always the case. Numerous people die from influenza every year. One of the things a lot of people don't realize about influenza is, much like coronavirus, after you have influenza, you're at a higher likelihood of getting certain conditions like heart attacks or strokes, anything that triggers an inflammatory cascade. Influenza, like coronavirus, can do that. Did you know that before? No? I know most people don't know this. So what do you think? Do you want to get your flu shot? No? Not yet? Okay. Which thing do we need to address next? You got the flu from the flu shot. Right. Got it. I thought you said you never had the flu. Oh, okay. You just got flu shot flu. Got it. All right. So it's impossible to get influenza from a flu shot. Impossible. There is a 0% chance of this happening. I can geek out for you for a minute of how a flu shot is made, for example. So there's different ways of making a flu shot. One method involves infecting chicken eggs or chicken protein, essentially the stuff inside a fertilized chicken egg, we call it albumin, with influenza virus, and you allow those influenza viruses to replicate, and then what you do is you inactivate the influenza so that it can't infect humans. And then you do a second step where you actually break apart pieces of influenza, and what you want to get is a protein that's on the outer surface of the cell called hemagglutinin. And most influenza vaccines come in, there's different flavors of them, but there's what we call trivalent, quadrivalent, meaning it protects you against either 3 or 4 types of influenza viruses. Most of them are quadrivalent, and it's protecting you against typically 2 of the A strain and then 2 of the B strain. So there's influenza A and B, the 2 major types. Yeah, I know this is way too much detail for most people, but I saw here in your educational background that you have a PhD from Georgia Tech. Yeah, very nice. So right up your alley, right? Excellent, excellent. But getting back to that, that's interesting. So remember I said there's 2 ways that you can make it. One in chicken eggs. There is a second way. It's a little gross. Don't get turned off by this. But they actually can use a different virus and just make the protein that you're of the influenza virus in a separate virus, and then put that in a different type of cells. And in this case, they use a insect that looks kind of like a moth, and then use sort of the same method and just get loads and loads of these proteins. And what's cool about those particular vaccines is even if you have a severe egg allergy, such as yourself, you can get those vaccines. Actually, that's what we use here in the office. Let me show that to you. So this is FluBlock. This is a vaccine that is made using that moth vector, and it's egg-free, so it's safe to use in folks with egg allergies. I'm going to show you what this looks like, because a lot of people think flu shot, big needles, giant syringes, it's going to hurt a lot. You couldn't be further from the truth. That's the size of the syringe. This is the actual thing right here, as you can see. I'm not sure if it's going to, I know, glaucoma. Got to control that diabetes better. But yeah, it's a very small syringe. It's only 0.5 milliliter, and the needle that we attach to the end of this is very, 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 very small. So, okay, doesn't hurt very much. but you want to have a needleless option. Okay. All right, so there are needleless options as well. I typically prefer using the flu shot over the needleless options, simply because I primarily deal with adults, and we don't actually stock the flu mist, which is the intranasal flu vaccine. We typically tend to find that in pediatric offices. Yeah. So the flu mist can be used in someone that's age 2 to 49, I believe. And the way flu mist works, there's no needles. It's looks like a little nasal spray. And you take it, the doctor takes it and puts one up your nostril, gives you half, the other one half here. This one is quite a bit different than the inactivated flu vaccine. So this one actually uses live influenza virus. Yeah, I know that sounds really scary, but this is a very special produced influenza virus that it only will make copies of itself in the nose. It doesn't go deeper into the airways. It doesn't cause the sort of symptoms that you know as influenza. But that vaccine strain can replicate in the nose, which is why we typically don't give it to people who are old, or I'm old being over 50 in this case. I know, I'm sorry. Don't get mad. And we don't typically give it to folks who are immunocompromised. So the influenza shot, on the other hand, the inactivated one, can be given as young as 6 months, and there is no upper limit of the age, because it is an inactivated vaccine that you won't get influenza from it. Yeah. So we could do the flu mist. I would have to order it. There's another method too, and it involves using an air gun, and this is another needleless system that you can do for influenza vaccination. Again, don't personally carry it. I just want to let you know it existed. Yeah. All right, are you ready to get your flu shot? Still no. Okay. What's next on your list? Let's see. You said it doesn't work. Okay. You know a bunch of people that got the flu shot and then they ended up getting the flu anyway. Yeah. I mean, this is, again, a very common thing I hear from a lot of my patients, and there's a good reason for that. So, remember I mentioned before that most of the vaccines contain proteins from 4 different types of influenza virus, right? So there are numerous types of influenza virus, because these viruses don't just infect humans, they infect birds, they infect pigs. You may have heard the term swine flu or avian flu. It's because that particular flu strain predominates in those species. Okay. So one thing about influenza is when it's making copies of itself, it's not very good at proofreading its genetic material, and it can change, it can mutate. And when it mutates, those receptors on the outside of the influenza virus, the ones that we're giving you in the vaccine and the ones that your body recognizes and produces antibodies and primes your immune system to be able to respond to the virus better, it can change those proteins over time. And because we have to make such a large amount of vaccine for influenza season, we have to essentially guess in advance what are going to be the most common types that are circulating. But one thing's for sure, and again, not a lot of people realize this, there's usually multiple types of influenza that circulate in any given season. Right, so that's why some people say, hey, I got the flu, and then I got the flu again. It is possible to get infected with different types of influenza in the same season, which is another reason you should get the flu vaccine, because you can't rely on, quote, natural immunity for this. you can still potentially get reinfected with it. Yeah. So because the fact that we're having to guess in advance what we think, and it's not a guess without education, this is done using quite a bit of research and looking at what's going on in the southern hemisphere, for example, which has a opposite flu season of us, to try to, in advance, predict what are going to be the major circulating types. Right. And then we bundle those 4 types into the vaccine. And in a great year, we may have a very good match to the major circulating types, meaning the vaccine in a great year may be about 50 or 60% effective, somewhere in that range. In bad years, it's been in the teens or 20 range, and it varies year by year. But the important thing to remember, though, is if you are, even in a poor year, if you are exposed to one of the types that is in the vaccine, you may have no symptoms of illness. And it's really important. One of the things I think a lot of people don't realize is how much money is lost by people having to take time off from work when they have influenza. Right. So most people aren't allowed to work when they have influenza, so that's lost revenue, and especially now with people really financially strained because of the coronavirus pandemic, getting your flu shot may make the difference between you being able to pay your rent this month, for example. Yeah. When I break that down to people, they're like, oh, yeah, that makes good sense, actually. Yeah. I could see you changing your mind. I know we spent a lot of time in this one issue, and it is not what you came in here for, but this is something that's really important, and I spend a lot of time on it because once you really kind of convert someone, once you take away the misinformation in their mind, and you're not just protecting them now for this season, but you're promoting a culture where people go back and get their flu shot every year. And I'm not just protecting you, I'm protecting all the people you may be exposed to, your parents, your community, all those folks who may also be susceptible. Yeah. All right. What was next on your list? Oh, yeah, you got a flu shot once and you think that it still is protecting you. It doesn't. So, and it gets back to what we were talking about before, because the virus keeps changing, those outer protein receptors, and because the immunity that you develop from getting the vaccine tends to decrease over time. This is why you have to get a flu shot every single year. While there's other diseases, for example, hepatitis, you can get a hepatitis vaccine, and because it's not changing like influenza is, it can last you for 10 plus years. Yeah. Okay. Very good. All right. So now, do you think you're ready to get a flu shot? Yes. Excellent. I knew we could do it. All right. Well, let's go on and talk a little bit more about what brought you in today to the Relaxing Infectious Disease Clinic. Okay. Excellent.